Hey, you guys, it's Rhonda here. I'm doing my little Sunday. Well, it's afternoon now. Normally it would be a Sunday morning thing, but I was up late practicing my DJing, my DJ moves, and I stayed up a little bit too late. And then I had some stuff that I had to do this morning. But anyhow, I usually like to talk about things that are kind of on my heart on Sundays. Sunday is kind of a special day for me to relax and reflect on certain things and just share my thoughts with you. So today, I want to talk about something that I think we've all experienced, and that's called imposter syndrome. You've probably heard of it, but basically, it's that nagging little feeling that a person gets inside that makes them often, times falsely believe that, they're not good enough, they're not qualified enough, or something that they want to go after. So, for example, it might be someone who is wanting to go after a job that they really want, or they want to get a promotion at work, or they want to do something that I'm extremely passionate about, start their own business. And I think it could show, I'm certain that it also shows up in personal settings. I would imagine if there's like someone that you are interested in and, maybe you don't think that you should go after that. But a lot of times it shows up, at least in my experience with people who I've coached, it's usually surrounding some kind of a professional setting. But anyhow, it's debilitating and it keeps people stuck and it can really hold you back. So I just wanted to talk about that because you owe it to yourself to break that down, face it head on, take steps to realize that, you until you realize it for the big lie that it is. So, I mean, it's one thing to acknowledge that maybe you don't have a certain skill set or you need to acquire a certain certification or just whatever it is that you need to be able to have a competency to achieve something. That's different. That's not what I'm talking about today. If you need a certain level of education or a certification to be able to be qualified to do a particular job or take on a particular role, then by all means acknowledge that, do what you have to do, and then move forward. But I'm talking about instances where all the evidence to the contrary is there. When you're telling yourself that, oh, you're not qualified, you're not good enough, nobody would consider me for that, you know, um, that's a lie. So usually when I detect that someone is engaging in imposter syndrome like behaviors, the first thing that I ask them is, please provide proof of that. What's the evidence that you have to support what you're saying about yourself? And usually, when we start working through that and start talking about their credentials, their qualifications, their experience, then it becomes really clear that the imposter syndrome is, in fact, just a big lie. So, that's kind of a big indicator. And what does it look like? A lot of times people will make excuses for why they can't move forward with something. It could be something as benign as like, well, I have to check this thing off of this list first. I've got to do this first. I got to do that. I got to do these things. Sometimes they can get caught up in analysis paralysis and just have a really difficult time making a decision about moving forward or, going after something that they want. There are telltale signs. Usually, if someone's stalling and, they keep talking about something that they want, but they just keep, coming up with reasons why they can't move forward with it and just do it. I will ask them directly, what's going on here? So, um, I will say that I had the privilege and the honor to attend a webinar a few months back. As part of my keeping up my coaching credential is, I have to continue with, continuing education credits. And even if I didn't have to do that, I really thoroughly enjoy learning things. So I'm always, attending workshops, webinars, training sessions, etc. And there was one that I attended that really, really caught my eye. And the reason why it caught my eye was because around that time, I had like at least 3 clients who were really working through imposter syndrome. One was just really struggling with, getting his new business that he was so excited about actually off the ground. Another person was always finding reasons why they couldn't dedicate the time that they needed to complete the steps to get on the path to get their business going. And then there was a third person who was really wanting to go after certain roles and do some career advancement. And there was always like some reason why they didn't apply for it, didn't network, didn't make the connections that would have benefit them to position them to be able to be considered for these roles. There was always just some really weird, strange reason. So I was really paying attention to this topic of imposter syndrome. So I signed up for one of the sessions, and I will share with you the person who hosted that presentation is named Lisa Orbé-Austin, PhD. She's amazing. That was one of the best training sessions that I've attended as a coach for my coaching credential, continuing education things. Anyway, I'm going to share these books. She wrote this book, Own Your Greatness. Okay, camera. Come on. It's not. It's so annoying, this autofocus. Anyhow, it's called Own Your Greatness, Overcome Imposter Syndrome, Beat Self-Doubt, and Succeed in Life. She wrote this book with her husband, Richard Orbé-Austin. And then they have another one, which I haven't gotten into this one yet, but it's called Your Unstoppable Greatness. Break free from imposter syndrome, cultivate your agency, and achieve your ultimate career goals. So this one sounds like it's specifically focused on career things. Let's see. Okay. Thank you, camera. Okay. That's that book. Let's try the other one. See if I can get it to, yeah, there we go. Okay. So these 2 books are really chock full of wonderful information. Now here's a third book, not by those 2, which I can't wait to dig into. I haven't gotten into it just yet because it's been kind of busy, and I'm writing my own book right now, as a matter of fact. But I was really intrigued by what I read about this book online, the Imposter Syndrome Workbook. This camera's really annoying. Please forgive that. It's the the Imposter Syndrome Workbook by Athena Danilo, Danilo. I hope that I pronounced that last name correctly. But anyhow, when you think about times that you've doubted yourself, think about it. Have you ever just not gone after something that you really wanted because you just felt like, yeah, that's not for me. They'll never consider me. They'll not take me seriously. And you just don't try. I really want to ask you to be honest with yourself. How many times in your lifetime have you done something like that? Whether it was a job, whether it was a contest that you wanted to enter, whether it was a relationship that you wanted to pursue. How many times have you done that? And what have you missed out on in life because of it? I mean, just really think about that. What are the opportunity costs that imposter syndrome costs us in the long run? So, that's pretty serious stuff. So when you think about that, I think you would want to really pay attention to these behaviors and, just address them. So one thing I want to dig into is, and this is from Lisa's blog. She has she shared this in the presentation, and I think it's an amazing tool. Now, I don't want to oversimplify because there's a lot more involved with each of these steps, but I'm just going to read them off for you, just so you get an overall view of how to transition through, combating this imposter syndrome. So, and I'm going to share my thoughts along the way for each one of these, because some of these things really connect with some other methodologies that I use in my coaching practice, and that I pull in from, whether it's positive intelligence, or just change management, just all the different tools and resources that are available to help clients. Okay, so Lisa has mapped out a really nice flow of how to transition through certain phases of combating imposter syndrome. So I'm just going to step through these real quick, and I will also comment on some of the things that I will touch on based on tools and resources that I use. They come from positive psychology, positive intelligence, etc. So I really like the way she's mapped this out, and it's interesting. I think it's interesting to me because some of these things I was already doing in working with clients to overcome imposter syndrome, much of which is based in cognitive-based. I'm not a therapist, but there are exercises, CBT, cognitive-based therapy exercises where I really encourage people to try to adjust their thinking, and really create a behavior around changing their behavior, and that ties into so many other things as well. I don't want to bombard you with a whole bunch of different names, a bunch of different people, a bunch of different bodies of work, but there are, there's a lot of really great information out here. For example, when I get into the first step, I'm going to reference the work of Shirzad Chamine, and I probably said his name wrong, and I'm so sorry, Shirzad. I have so much respect for you, Shirzad. He has a book called Positive Intelligence, Building Mental Fitness for All. And I've gone through his program. It's a phenomenal program, and it really talks about identifying our saboteurs and working through those. So you may hear me just kind of comment on, if you hear me talk about saboteurs, that's Shirzad's work. I want to give him total credit here. I don't want to just throw stuff out there and not credit the people whose body of work that is. So in these phases, she's got 3 phases, and the first phase is clarify. Okay. And this is where you this is where you work on understanding the fundamentals of your imposter syndrome. All right. The second phase is choose. And this is all about making conscious choices behaviorally to break the imposter cycle. And then the third phase is create. And that's about, setting up an environment around you to support your movement away from imposter syndrome. Now, I want to touch on what I know about change management as a change management practitioner. This is very much aligned with the work around individual change. I'm a certified pro-sci change practitioner. So, I love the ADKAR model, which is awareness, desire, knowledge, adoption, and reinforcement. So you see how these things kind of line up, right? So first thing to do is to be aware of the fact that you have imposter syndrome. So be mindful of the types of excuses that you make, the things that you avoid doing, even though you really want to do something, so just be mindful of that. I mean, I could just go to town on a whole bunch of things around that, but we don't have all that time today. So anyhow, for Lisa's process, the first step inside of the clarify phase is to identify your imposter origin story. Okay. And so let's see what she says right here. It begins with figuring out the unique factors that are central to your imposter syndrome. Everyone has their own story, and that is so true. And your reasons why this developed in the first place. So you need to discover that and identify that, because if you don't understand where it's coming from, it's going to be difficult for you to clarify, the difference between where you are now and where you want to be. So now I'm going to touch on Shirzad's work really quick, because he's all about saboteurs, So we have our saboteurs that work against us, and they all have an origin story. So for example, I was just working with someone recently who their top saboteur was what was it? Hyperachiever, I think it was. And as it turns out, there are things that can happen to us in childhood that trigger certain behaviors. Like if you were always told you weren't good enough, or you felt like you were in competition, or maybe you felt neglect, or, whatever, that can create these kinds of behaviors in us, and they carry over into adulthood. And because most of the time we're not aware that we're even developing these behaviors, they just manifest in all kinds of crazy ways. So the reason I wanted to just mention that is because, this origin story, as Lisa is mapping out in her journey, everything starts with that. And even as a performance consultant, these frameworks all tend to kind of, map over it at some point or another. Start with where you are and where you want to go. What's your current state? What's your future state? So anyhow, then the next step is to know your triggers and your trapdoors. And so these are the unique factors that are special to your particular story around your imposter syndrome. So, what is it that triggers you? Do you get triggered when you are faced with the thought of getting a promotion at work? Do you want to enter a contest? What's going to trigger you? And these triggers are tied to your origin story, which is why she said in the beginning, it's so important to know that origin story. So all I can say is just awareness, like absolutely insane awareness is going to be your friend as you're going through this. Not to the point where you're just questioning every single thing that you do, but you have to have a level of self-awareness in order to make any kind of improvement anyway. So now that we've established what the origin story is and what the triggers are, now you have a foundation for which to change the narrative. So for example, when I talk about working with clients who are throwing out all kinds of reasons and excuses, and I call them excuses. I don't mean any harm or offense by that, but basically when they're not true, that's what they are. It's fear. It's a defense mechanism. It's analysis paralysis. It's an excuse. Basically, it's part of the big lie of imposter syndrome. And I remember last year, or maybe it was year before last, I had a client who was just working through some really serious self-doubt. And every time I asked her, okay, well, where's the proof in that? There was no proof in that. Okay, well, didn't you just tell me that you did this, and this? And didn't you just tell me that you got this accolade and you were praised for this and this and this and this? The amount of invalidation that we do to ourselves is just really too bad. It's just like, wow, why do we do that to ourselves? And then come to find out, where this came from was feeling a little less than around this person's had some peers around her that even though they were close friends, sometimes she felt inadequate. Just differences in where the friends were going, and I got a sense that they weren't necessarily as supportive of her career choices, and so that kind of bothered a little bit, and we had to kind of dig into that, and we uncovered that. And so once you kind of establish where this is all coming from, what triggers you, then you can start to change the narrative. And the way that I help people try to start changing that narrative is by asking them for proof. What's the evidence? Everything that they say, I even have an activity that I use, an exercise, which has nothing to do with what I'm sharing today, but my own tools that I use, where I just actively say, okay, well, for every thought that you had around this particular subject, what's the opposite of that? If you don't have any proof to support, because if what they're saying is true, like for example, I don't have a medical degree, but I want to be a doctor. Okay, well, you can do something about that, and there's truth behind that because that's factual. Okay, but if it's something else and it's just really not true, then you have to counter that with something else. Then you really need to focus on the future state. So as far as the work that I do, which is aligned with what Lisa is writing about here, that's part of changing the narrative. So there's, like she says here, there's so much dialogue that's going on internally that's reinforcing your imposter syndrome. So you really have to arrest that. You've got to grab it and stop that right in its tracks. These are the voices, and tell me if this in the comments. Tell me if this sounds familiar to you. These are the voices that tell you that you're a fraud, you're incompetent, and that the only way to keep others from, the only way to keep others from learning this is to overwork, overfunction. Right. The only way to keep your secret, the only way from being found out that you're an imposter, you're a fraud, and you're incompetent is to overwork, overfunction, and make no mistakes. And this is where this perfectionist traits often come in. I see this all the time in my coaching. So if you feel like if you're the kind of person who's naturally inclined to just jump in and overfunction and fix things all the time, let's take a look at that. Why are you doing that? Is there some insecurity that you're having? Are you feeling like, do you have, that internal voice that's telling you that you're not good enough? And this is part of the people pleaser saboteur from Shirzad's work. So see how these are lined up. So just be aware of that. How often do you do that? If you're overfunctioning and overworking and just feeling like you are just something's driving you to prove yourself, might you be having imposter syndrome? It's just a question, just something for you to think about. So let's move on to the next phase, choose. So in the choose phase, the step is this first step in the choose phase, which is the fourth step in the whole journey, is to speak your truth. Okay. And this is the part where I was saying that when I'm working with clients and I'm like, okay, let's counter that thought. Like, where's the proof? Where's the evidence? What's the reality? Contrary to what these voices are lying to you about in your head, what is the actual reality? Okay. So let's see what she says here. Once you've worked on the things that you need to tell yourself, you have to work on what you say to others and how you talk about yourself publicly. This is so powerful. Whether we're talking about imposter syndrome or not, this is such a powerful thing. I just want you to stop right now and think, how do you talk about yourself to others? How do you talk about yourself to yourself? This is so important. We have to be kind with ourselves, and we have to Be kind with how we speak about ourselves to others. Okay. Are you one of those people that's uncomfortable with accepting a compliment? She, wow. I used to be like that. People would compliment me and I would just be, I just couldn't take it. Like, what's up with that? Just say thank you, right? Um, yeah, speak your truth. Man, this is really powerful. I could see, why she set this up. Choose, because you have to choose. You have to choose to make conscious choices. You have to choose to change your behavior. And I say this all the time. Behaviorism, just as a body of work in psychology, is just like it's it's so simple. It's your friend. It's going to be your friend, you know? So you have to choose to speak your truth. You have to choose to, next step, silence um, what she calls ants, and that stands for automatic negative thoughts. And yeah, and then you have to choose to value your self-care. Can't wait to get to that one. But moving on to the next one, silencing automatic negative thoughts. Now, this is where the behaviorism comes in. This is where Shirzad's work of mental fitness comes in. He has a thing, or Shirzad has a thing he refers to as PQ reps. This is where you just stop and you have to schedule this into your day. Because when I went through his program, it was several times a day. There's an app and it would send me a notification. It's time to stop and have a mindfulness moment. And you would choose which type of exercise you want to do. And they can last anywhere from 2 minutes to, longer. I think it was like 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, something. I don't know. You choose how long that you want to stop and do this exercise for. And basically, you're building up your mental muscle by doing this. And this is so applicable to what she's talking about here. And this is so aligned with the work that I've done with the CBT exercises that I give my coaching clients, because you just literally just down to, you have to just make time for this. It is an act of doing. It's an act of activating, your brain to create new neural pathways. You have got to change your thinking. You can't just think about changing your thinking. You have to actively do things to change your thinking. And it involves changing your behaviors. And another piece that I love to get into is the work of what is his name? Michael Bungay Stainer. So he has a piece about rituals. I know I'm throwing a lot at you guys, but this is how these things all come together. And when you know about these different areas of work, that makes you a much better coach when you can pull from various different resources and you know what to use and when and under what circumstances. But this is where cognitive-based activities, this is where positive intelligence is going to help you. This is where you just good old-fashioned behaviorism. This is where establishing ritual to help you fortify these behavior changes that you need to make. This is where all this is going to come together to deal with silencing automatic negative thoughts. Because this is where you have to literally arrest, like if you're having a thought, you're like in the middle, like, oh, I'm just so, nobody's going to want me. When you catch yourself having a thought like that, you literally have to stop, and replace that with a different thought. If you have to say it out loud, if you have to write it down, whatever it is that you have to do. And you must get into the habit of doing this over and over and over again. And ask yourself, what proof do I have of this negative thing that I just said about myself? And if you're honest with yourself, 9 times out of 10, there is no proof. It's a lie. That's why I'm making this video. It's the big lie of imposter syndrome. It's stemming from some other place that made you feel small, less than, inadequate, incompetent, unimportant. And I don't care who you are. I think that we've all experienced that. We've all experienced that. And that doesn't mean that it was on purpose or that the person who might have made us feel this way intended to do that. But it happens because we're all human and we're all imperfect. And these things just unfortunately happen. And sometimes it's just in the way that we perceive things and what our viewpoint is all about, what our perspective on life is all about. Sometimes we need to clean our windows. So sometimes it's our own worldview that reinforces this imposter syndrome because we don't believe in ourselves because our viewpoint is flawed or skewed or something, in the first place. But anyhow, this is really important. Let's just dig into what she's saying here. So it's important to put these automatic negative thoughts in their place. And that is just hands down. That's so fundamental to all of this. What thoughts are we talking about? We were talking about the thoughts that pop into your head when you're facing one or more of your triggers. And that is, again, why it's really important for you to know what your triggers are. Because if you know, for example, in advance that you're going to be coming into a situation, an environment, or, some kind of event is coming up that, is going to trigger you, prepare yourself, give yourself a pep talk, give yourself a nudge, set yourself up for success and know that in advance going in so that you can be ready to combat these lies and these negative thoughts. So, for example, when you struggle with a task and you might think, what's wrong with me? These things should come easily now. Or if you make a mistake and you think, oh my gosh, everyone saw that. They must be thinking that I don't deserve this opportunity and that I'm incompetent. What's important is that we learn that we are not our thoughts. We are the observer of our thoughts. This is what she says. And I think that's a quote from Amit Ray. This looks like what she's written here. So anyhow, it's critical to discover these automatic negative thoughts. They are specifically connected to your flavor of imposter syndrome. And it's imperative that you learn how to deal with these and that you are rational and realistic, okay, and truthful with yourself. So then she says, respond to them with answers like this. I made a mistake. I took accountability for it. We're all human, like I just said. Everyone makes mistakes. There are room for mistakes, and that's how we grow, okay? Instead, so answer that in that positive, realistic way, as opposed to just tearing yourself apart, right? Because when you do that, when you tear yourself down, all you're doing is reinforcing your feelings of imposter syndrome. So again, back to the behaviorism, the creating the habits, using mindfulness, using the PQ reps, taking those moments throughout the day to reinforce the good things over the negative things. And over time, this is going to create those new pathways in the brain. This is cognitive. This is science-based. This is not woo-woo. I'm not pulling this out of thin air. That's why I'm speaking to you and I'm reading directly from a valid source. So, I'm not just sitting here on my camera on a Sunday afternoon just making up stuff because I'm bored and I just wanted to make a video. Anything that I talk to you about on this channel, I have researched or I've experienced it myself. I will never, ever just share willy-nilly stuff off the top of my head, unless it's just some willy-nilly thing that I just want to share, like that is just like something fun or whatever. But I would never joke about or not take seriously anything that has something to do with sharing important information about your personal development and growth and self-improvement. All right, so I've just been on that one for quite a while. So number 6, value your self-care. So let me just read what she says here. Imposter syndrome also leaves us devaluing ourselves in the way that we prioritize self-care. This is, I hadn't gotten down this far yet. I just had a thought recently um, about how I need to spend more time doing, engaging in more self care and putting myself first. Um, wow. I wonder if you might need to take a think about that as well. Do you ever put yourself last? Are you, you know, always putting the kids first, always putting your spouse first, always putting the job first? And, oh, well, maybe you need to take a break. Maybe you need a massage or to go to a retreat or a spa, or maybe you need to just sit in the corner and read and drink tea and just do nothing else. Whatever it is that helps you decompress and take care of yourself. Do you ever find yourself putting yourself last on that list? How do you prioritize your self-care? That's my question for you. So, self-care is not just anything you do for entertainment or relaxation. It is an activity meant to fill your tank and give you a sense of rejuvenation, not just mental, like such as engaging in active problem solving, therapy, journaling, etc., but also physical. Releasing physical stress and tension, taking care of your body, massage, I just said that, exercise, yoga, stretching, and reflective, being present and in the moment. Wow, that is so powerful. So powerful. Sometimes we get so busy, we just forget to be in the moment. And I know you've heard people talk about that. That's like really, really super important. I'm going to do a whole other video about that, just that alone, because I think that so many things can be improved upon if we just were more present and in the moment. So she refers to meditation, religious practices, mindfulness activities, super, super important. There's a whole other book, a doctor that I want to dig into her work. I'm not going to go on a tangent on this one, but it's the book Mindfulness. Just check it out. But anyhow, gratitude exercises. These are so important. And now I see all these steps are compounding on each other because you have to fill your tank. You've got to have that energy. You have to be rejuvenated because you need the energy to maintain, this new way of being and these behavioral changes that you're making. It takes energy. Okay. And if you're not there for yourself, to keep yourself lifted up and give yourself the energy that you need to be, to combat the negative thoughts, to speak your truth, this imposter syndrome is going to win every single time. So I love what she says, that it's not just about, entertainment or relaxation. This is absolutely important. Like, do you get up and brush your teeth every morning? That's important. You take a shower every day. You take care of your hair. You take care of your body. You give yourself sustenance. You eat every day. We take care of everything else as humans that we have to take care of just to survive physically. Your self-care should be absolutely as automatic of a part of your routine as anything else that you do throughout the day. Let me say that again. Self-care should be as automatic and as prioritized of an activity that you do every single solitary day, just like you would do anything else. Take that in. All right, so now we are on the final phase, which is create. Okay. So in the create phase, this is where you are. This is the part I like this part because I love helping people set up frameworks for success and tying back into the change model, right? So this is where you reinforce, right? So let's say you have successfully been battling your imposter syndrome and you're really, really making headway. What can you do to set yourself up for success? You have got to create an environment that supports this change in behavior. Okay, so let's see what she says. It says to step 7, experiment with new roles. When we experience imposter syndrome, we can get stuck in rigid roles. Some of the common ones discussed are the superwoman or superman. I need to do the work of 3 people, that kind of role. The natural genius. If I'm truly intelligent, I shouldn't need to work so hard. The expert. I must be the most knowledgeable person at the table. The soloist. I can't work with others because if they make a mistake, I will be responsible. The perfectionist. I need to do this perfectly and make no mistakes. So it's funny to me because these roles that I just read off to you are, they have different names, but a lot of them are sounding to me like some of the saboteurs in Shirzad's work in Positive Intelligence. Go check that out too, positiveintelligence.com. It's really amazing work. Yeah, those are not healthy roles. They're not healthy. We might think that it's noble to be a Superman or Superwoman, but it is not. It's not noble for yourself, and your family is not going to benefit from that. Let me just tell you. Sadly, I'm kind of speaking from experience a little bit. I've been, in my lifetime in the past, I've been pushed into having to take on the role of Superwoman, not by choice, but, hey, there I was. But you know what? Even if it's something that happens to you not by choice, like for me, I got divorced. So I all of a sudden was now a single mom. And I know this is not that unusual of a story, but, single mom, just working my butt off, was in graduate school at the same time. And, just trying to keep a balanced life for my daughter and just running ragged all over the place, working full time in school, being a single mom. And I was the head of the HOA association too. And I had other stuff going on. And I had started a new business during that period of time. Not the one I have now, but one from years ago. Crazy, crazy. Sometimes, you know what? You can't do it all. But anyhow, let me move on. So she says that it's important to diversify the roles that we take up in the world. Some of the most valuable roles that people with imposter syndrome need to work on and try are the help seeker. This is when you seek advice and assistance from others. Doesn't that sound a lot less stressful and a little bit more healthy? The risk taker, learning to take calculated risks for yourself and your dreams. That really, really, really strikes me, man, because you know how I feel about, I love, love, love to get people on their path of where they want to go. I am a big advocate. I know there's a lot of controversy around, follow your dreams. Oh, don't follow your dreams. There's some big gurus out there that say, like following your dreams or having your passion is overstated and that's BS. And I'm not here to unpack all of that. But what I can tell you is this. If you do have a dream or you have a purpose or a passion or something you really feel strongly about and you really feel moved to go after that, who is anybody to tell you that you shouldn't? I don't care what their stupid opinion is about, you shouldn't do that. Well, then why? Why not? Why not? I mean, I have met so many people who are just like literally doing things that other people told them to do because that other person, whether it was a parent or a spouse or a peer or society, whatever, told them, you have to do this, you must do this because based on blah, 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 blah. So many unhappy people in the world because they really are not fulfilling really what they truly want to do. There's nothing wrong with at least trying to pursue your dream if you really feel strongly about it. That doesn't mean you just throw caution to the wind and you just like, hey man, I'm just going to go live in a box on the side of the street, all for the sake of my dreams. We're not talking about extremes here, but I'm really, really an advocate for people finding their dream and getting on with it. Something that makes you feel like, yeah, when you get up in the morning. That's the power of a dream. So you owe it to yourself to, like she's saying, be more of a risk taker. Again, calculated risks, not crazy, reckless risk, but calculated risk for yourself and for your dreams. Wow, I really just had to touch on that one. Next role, the collaborator, working on team cohesion. That's really important because you know what? At the end of the day, no matter what you think, we can't do everything alone. And as much as it might sound appealing in some given moment, some people just love to take credit and be like, they want to be like, ooh, I did it all by myself. Like, so what? What? Who are you trying to impress by always doing stuff alone? I don't know. We'll come back to that another time, another video, another day. But anyhow, collaboration is really powerful and important because, there's nothing like the power of a group of people who come together and they have the same shared goals, values, missions, and like, bam, you can like leverage so many different talents and capabilities and perspectives and diversity of opinions and ideas. You're never going to get that far by yourself because if you're missing those key components, you are missing out on a lot of really cool stuff. So be more of a collaborator. The knowledge receiver. Admitting knowledge gaps and learning from other experts. Now, this ties back into that ADKAR model that I mentioned. The K is for knowledge because anytime you need to make a change, there's going to be something that you have to learn along the way. You're going to need to improve on your skills because you just can't stay the same and expect to go through a change transformation. It's just pretty basic. The visible leader, okay? Being more visible and prominent in high-stakes situations. Now, this is where it really challenges that imposter syndrome, doesn't it? So if you've been like, oh, nobody's going to respect me or pay attention to me, I'm not going to get a seat at that table. Challenge yourself. Put yourself out there. Do it anyway. I love this statement. Feel the fear and do it anyway, right? So put yourself out there and become more visible. This is, I think, all these other things that we've talked about, these are the internal work that you do on yourself. But when you get to this one, being more visible, wow, that's where it really starts to, that's where the rubber is hitting the road, isn't it? Because isn't that something that that we like to do? Is to kind of disappear and be invisible, because isn't it a lot more comfortable to stay behind the scenes when you have imposter syndrome? Yeah, cut that out. All right, so the 8th step, establish your dream team. Oh, this sounds really good to me. Struggling with imposter syndrome can often be a very lonely experience. Yes, it can be. It's very lonely inside of that head with all those ants marching around, those automatic negative thoughts, just you and the ants in there by yourself, telling yourself all these big bad lies that aren't true. So she says it's important when you're working on overcoming it, not to do it alone. I cannot agree with this more. You need to create a dream team of people around you to support you in your process. That goes back to the last piece that where we talked about, this is part of the environment that you're trying to create, so we already just talked about experimenting with new roles. Now we're talking about establishing your dream team. It is so, so, so important to make sure that you surround yourself with the right people. And that extends beyond this conversation about imposter syndrome. I mean, that just matters, period. I was just thinking this morning when I was drinking my coffee about how sometimes we can be influenced by other people, even if we are aware of it or not. If you start hanging out with this person and they've got some really, noticeable characteristics or traits about them, you might start to take them on. If you're that kind of a person who's impressionable like that and easily influenced, you have to be so careful about the company that you keep, because you can get into these negative thought cycles. just generally speaking, just being around negative people, for example, is just such a downer. It's such an energy drain. And next thing you know, you're thinking about the world in a negative way. And it starts off so subtle. It might start off as like a funny joke, and then it's another little statement, another little comment. The next thing you know, you're barking at the TV set, ranting and raving about whatever, instead of just thinking a million other things that you could be thinking at that time. So this is really super important, to surround yourself with people who are going to support your process. And you know what? If you've got naysayers and haters in your group, cut them out. I don't care who they are. Get them out. They're like a cancer. I don't care if it's been your best friend since high school. I had one of those. Yeah, she was pretty toxic. Had to cut her loose. It was difficult. And I had moments, and I still think about her today, because that's, part of my past. And, we had some fun times and stuff, but man, that person just really wasn't good for me. And she did not support me. And she literally was like almost trying to sabotage me. Like, she was just really super negative. And so don't let nostalgia fool you into thinking that you need to keep people around just because you've known them since way back when. I know that's a hard one, and that just gave me an idea for another thing I want to talk about another time. But that is so important to, not engage with people who are not supporting you. Because for what? I know it's difficult. If it's family, that's a little bit more difficult. You can't just necessarily maybe cut your family off, but you can definitely set up boundaries. Okay. Anyhow, some of the team member roles that are critical are as follows: the mentor, a senior person in career experience, a cheerleader, that's your supportive boost, the grounder, this is your go-to for a reality check, kind of like maybe your coach. If you maybe a coach could be a great grounder for you for a reality check. And when a coach such as me is going to ask you, what evidence do you have to support that negative thing you just said about yourself? The action planner, this person helps to create a plan when you have an imposter triggered issue. So again, back to, we talked a few steps ago about, being prepared for when these trigger events are going to happen. If you have someone in your corner who can help you to create that plan to combat that and be prepared for it when those times come up, that's going to be a great person to have on your dream team. The big picture person, they help put things into perspective. And this can be the person that helps you remind you of your dreams. Because sometimes when we get caught up in the mix, or we get lost in the sauce and we get stressed out, whoosh, dreams just go right out the window. It's like you forget, oh yeah, I wanted to do that, because you get into sometimes survival mode, and then you go into panic, and then you just start doing all these other things that aren't at all aligned with anything that's going to get you closer to your dreams. So a big picture person can help you keep that perspective. And then there's the imposter expert. This is a person who understands how imposter syndrome works. Let's see, it can be a fellow. It can be a fellow book club member. She's referring to her book, Own Your Greatness. Yeah, I can't wait to get into that one. Yeah, she's got some great books. Okay, here we go. So now, step 9, understand and create the conditions for optimal performance. And this again, reinforcement, this whole piece here, this whole last phase is all about the reinforcement aspect of supporting your change. Okay. For the long haul. So learning how to be able to take all your new skills with you and recognize that it takes conscious interruption of old behaviors and thoughtful practice of new behaviors to move away from imposter syndrome. These are vital for performing optimally. See, everything that we've talked about so far culminates in this final thing. It is consistent, continuous effort to consciously uphold these changes, these behavioral changes, and constantly stay in a state of awareness and the mindfulness and the PQ reps, all of these tools that I've mentioned along the way that I use in my coaching practice, for example, and then there's others that I hadn't even mentioned. They're not just one hit wonders. They're not one offs. Like, okay, well, I put a band-aid on it. I did this thing, la di da. Okay, I'm over my imposter syndrome. Okay, ta ta. And then you don't use those again. These are actions and skills that are built for life. Okay, just remember that. Any kind of challenge that you face, as you're overcoming imposter syndrome or several other challenges, struggles, anything that you learn along the way, you need to keep that in your toolbox and refer back to them regularly and check in. Because one thing that I can tell you for sure, change is inevitable. And this change, this pivot point, whatever it is that you are, getting ready to embark on, it's one thing today, and it's surely going to be something different a year, 5 years, 10 years from now, because we are always evolving and changing. We want different things over time. We ourselves as individuals change, and our desires change, our needs change, all kinds of things are always constantly changing. So anyhow, that was my deep dive into how to overcome imposter syndrome. I will leave the information about Lisa Orbé-Austin's books in the description, and I hope that you check them out. And if you are interested in talking about this more with me, you know how to get in touch with me. And I thank you for watching this video or listening to this podcast, however you're consuming this content. I really appreciate you. And I would love it if you would click like and subscribe to my channel if you don't mind. Help me grow. Thank you so much for your time. And remember, imposter syndrome is a big lie. And get in front of it. Get in front of it. I've provided a framework for you. And good luck and enjoy your change journey. Bye.